Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
He needs care and treatment.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Is this a great country or what?
Locking down the middle of the day, live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Monday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Appreciate you hanging with us on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. We're brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions. Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. LSU women's basketball season is over. We'll discuss it. LSU football out on the practice field this weekend, plus some disappointing injury news. We will certainly get to all that. The NFL owner meetings are going on out in the Valley of the Sun. We'll discuss that and something Kellen Moore said about Alvin Kamara today. We'll get into that. LSU baseball over the weekend gets 2 out of 3 from Kentucky. The NCAA tournament has its Final Four in one of the best games ever. And oh, by the way, LSU has a new men's basketball coach, if you weren't aware. Kind of a new basketball coach. Kind of an old basketball coach. He's new now. We'll talk about that with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
Will Wade stepped off the PMAC stage less than half an hour ago, less than 20 minutes ago in actuality, reintroducing him as the head coach of the Fighting Tiger basketball program. He took questions for about 20 minutes, and I came away with two big picture items from the press conference. One is that Will Wade really likes Louisiana. He really liked it when he was a head coach at LSU. He really liked it when he was a head coach at McNeese. And he said today, if you missed it in his press conference, that he wasn't born in Louisiana, but Louisiana is home. And his wife feels that way. His daughter feels that way. He told a story that his daughter, Caroline, still watches every LSU gymnastics meet on television. And you know the relationships that he has had with Dr. Roos and with Heath Schroyer and with the people, Lee Mallet included there in Southwest Louisiana at McNeese. You know that he had a lot of very close relationships here in Baton Rouge. If you're around town and you know people here, like he maintained relationships, and a lot of people think very highly of Will Wade here in Baton Rouge, and that's obviously not the case nationwide. If you ask the general college basketball fan, certainly an NC State fan or Joe media member from the national press, like people's approval rating of Will Wade is pretty low nationally. It's not here. He loves it here. He is loved here, and that was a draw for him to come back to be a head coach in Louisiana at LSU. Now, you don't get any bonus points for loving the school that you work for. You don't get any bonus points for liking the neighborhood. But it's a nice thing to have. It's insignificant in the grand scheme of things for you, the fan, but as far as for the coach, it's a big deal. Now, here's the more important aspect of all of this. We sit here every Wednesday and play a silly game called What If Wednesday, right? And the thing about what ifs is you never get the answer. You can talk about it, you can discuss it, you can give a feeling. You don't get the answer. That's baked in here when you have a what if. And one of those what ifs, what if Will Wade never gets caught on the wiretap? What if Will Wade continued to be the basketball coach at LSU? He was leading the program through its most successful stretch since the very, very early 90s. What if that never happened? It's a what if that we could have played forever until last week. And now you get your answer. You get to answer the what if. Because Will Wade was talking today, and he said that the last 3 years he was at LSU, the program was essentially operating at, his words, 60%. You had the NCAA breathing down your neck. You had some limitations based on the early findings of the investigation. Your assistants were limited. Will Wade's recruiting ability was limited. Like, you couldn't do all the things that Will Wade wanted to do. Now, part of that was because he did things that you weren't supposed to do. But And he admitted that. He wasn't trying to hide it. But, like, you were limited in that way and still making runs. And now you don't have that. You don't have the NCAA breathing down your neck. You don't have that issue above your head. You can operate at 100%. And secondly, as he described, when you take a new job, and he took a job at Tennessee Chattanooga and then took a job at VCU and then took a job at LSU and took a job at McNeese and took a job at NC State, every single time you do that, you have to get your feet on the ground, for lack of a better term. You've got to meet the people you're supposed to meet. You've got to learn the things that you've got to know. Each different job, each different city comes with its different circumstances. And that can take a new coach time to get up and moving. None of that. Will Wade doesn't need any time. He knows who to talk to. Already talked to him. He knows where to live. He knows where his office is. He knows what league he's in and a lot of the coaches in it. Like, so in both directions, both the adapting to a new thing and then finishing your old thing, start and finish, you've got a clean slate. So we will now get the what if answered. What if Will Wade was allowed to continue coaching at LSU? What if they didn't make that decision to fire him? Well, now you'll know. I think as I assess this hire for LSU basketball, and I talked about this last week, you have absolutely raised your floor as a basketball team. And the floor at LSU in men's basketball is really low. Really low. The floor at LSU in men's basketball is the bottom of the league. I saw Trent Johnson hit it. I saw Johnny Jones hit it. I saw Matt McMahon hit it. Never saw Will Wade hit it. Will Wade's floor here was beating the eventual national runner-up, Michigan, in Maui, in his third game as the coach, and making the tournament every year after that. Won NIT, beat ULL. We play in an arena, not a gym. You've been under a rock. Tournament the rest of the way. Now, I'm not telling you Will Wade's going to make the tournament every single year he's at LSU, but I'm telling you that he makes the tournament every year, everywhere he is. That's his past. And so what you've got here is a guy with a very high floor who really wants to be here, who's got a booster base behind him that is energized. I know that for a fact. A national brand which has allowed football, baseball, women's basketball, gymnastics to all win national championships in the last 10 years. And a coach who's revitalized by going back to a place that he felt like he didn't finish the business. The ingredients here for LSU men's basketball are very good. Now, the other part of that is that Will Wade has never coached in a Sweet 16 game. He had a team make the Sweet 16. He wasn't allowed to coach them. He's not a perennial Elite Eight goer. He's never been to the Final Four. He won the conference once at LSU. Didn't finish well at NC State. Beat up on the Southland at McNeese. But I don't think anyone in Baton Rouge here in the state of Louisiana is under the impression that LSU just hired Tom Izzo, just hired Mike Krzyzewski. But I think the likelihood, and this is where I'll start to editorialize my opinion on this thing, I think you've hired a high-floor basketball coach at a powerful place, a coach who is connected to the right people, has a deep love for this city and state, and is kind of radioactive to everyone else. I think what you've got here is a coach who's going to sustain a sizable period of high-level basketball at LSU. And that is something that has not been present at LSU outside of Wade's tenure in my entire life. I started paying attention closely to LSU sports in the late 90s. I remember Warren Morris's home run. I was 8. I remember LSU going to the Independence Bowl. I was 7. I remember LSU's first trip to the SEC championship game in football. I was 14, 13. So if you go back and look at that time frame, LSU has had a couple of high highs, Final Four, Trent Johnson's SEC championship team, Wade's SEC championship team. That's kind of it. And then a bunch of blah. And I think the blah is gone. I don't know that I expect him to reach 4 Final Fours at LSU, but I expect him to make January and February interesting. He used this term today, and it's a great indicator of how familiar he is with this place. We're not just going to be a stopgap between football and spring football or football and baseball. That's a guy who knows the circumstances he just came into. And I think with Will Wade at the helm at LSU, that this basketball program is going to win a lot of games. They're going to make more tournaments than they don't. And if you just get the right lightning in a bottle situation, you can make a run at this thing. It's been proven in the Southeastern Conference. Football schools, and I use some air quotes there, have become forces in basketball. Auburn did it under Bruce Pearl. Bama's doing it right now under Nate Oates. Todd Golden's pretty dadgum good over there at Florida. Rick Barnes has been to 3 straight Elite Eights at Tennessee. It's proven. You can do this. You don't have to be Kentucky to make this thing happen when you got a big budget, a powerful brand, and the right guy at the helm who puts in the work. And Will Wade is revitalized by a second opportunity he didn't know if he'd ever get. And now we get the answer to our what if. What if Will Wade was never caught on the wiretap, if Scott Woodward never fired him, and he was allowed to continue the best, most consistent run in LSU basketball since the very early 90s? What would happen? We have our answer. Because Will Wade is back. He doesn't have to worry about NCAA sanctions, and he doesn't have to ramp it up to figure out LSU. He's been here. It's an exciting thing for LSU basketball. Y'all have heard me say this a million times. I love watching that team play basketball. This is a personal thing, but like there's a tiny bit of Will Wade's tenure at LSU that is the reason I'm sitting here. I kept my toe in the media water running a basketball podcast for 18 minutes every morning before I went to go sell insurance. I love that program. And I hate it when it's not any good and it's completely boring and they can't even hold your attention through the 3rd week of January. My gut tells me those days are over. With this guy in charge, I've got a good feeling about what's coming for LSU basketball. And that's an exciting thing. Monday show is brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions. When we come back, LSU and Kentucky from the box over the weekend. It was a little bit chippy. There was a lot of action. LSU won their first series in a month. I've got a lot of thoughts, both positive and negative. We'll get into all that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Boudreaux's Electrical Services. I'm going to give you the number for Boudreaux's Electrical Services at the end of this read. If you think now's the time to get that Generac home standby generator, Boudreaux's Electrical is who you need to call. Shop local. Go with the local business. Neil and Melissa Boudreaux have been running Boudreaux's Electrical for 40 years, 4 decades. They're going to have full-time employees that come and do the installation. They're going to monitor your Generac home standby generator 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that if there are some maintenance issues that need to happen, if there are some mechanical issues that need to be fixed, they know they can send a local person out there to get it fixed so that when your power does go out, that generator kicks on and you are comfortable and have electricity. Go with the local option. That's Boudreaux's Electrical there at 985-397-1562. That's 985-397-1562. Or the Gonzales location at 225-300-9389. That's 225-300-9389. That's Boudreaux's Electrical.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions. Guarantee Health Solutions, guiding healthcare forward. GuaranteeHealth.com.
Guarantee Health Solutions brings you our shows every single Monday. Let me remind you about my friends at the Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com. HighlandIG.com is that website. If your business that's looking for a commercial insurance solution, the Highland Insurance Group can absolutely help you out with that, including captives. If you are a sizable operation and you've got great loss history, good risk management, and you're not in a captive, why? Why are you not in a captive? Is it because your broker hasn't shown you that, or because you don't feel like you're a fit? Maybe you've never heard of it. The Highland Insurance Group handles captives all the time. Not every broker is capable of that. Jonathan Carbone and his team at the Highland Insurance Group are. So if you're looking for a solution that may drastically alter your bottom line when it comes to your insurance costs, the Highland Insurance Group can show you that if you are a fit. Check them out online, highlandig.com. They're here in Baton Rouge. Online, highlandig.com. All right, let's talk some baseball. LSU and Kentucky over the weekend. Tigers get 2 out of 3, their first series win in a month. They had dropped their first 2 in league play and lost to Sacramento State in the week before. So it was nice to get that monkey off your back a little bit. There was some real positive in this weekend. There was some real negative in this weekend. I'm going to split them. I'm going to start with the positive stuff. LSU won the weekend. Let's start with the positive stuff. I'll get to the negative stuff here a little bit later. But offensively, you did produce a lot. You produced a lot of runs. Keep in mind, like in 2 of 3 SEC weekends, LSU has scored 28-plus runs. LSU scored 31 in Nashville, and they scored 28 against Kentucky in 3 games over the weekend. The Tigers hit 320 as a team this weekend. They were 32 out of 100. They had 13 extra base hits to Kentucky's 4. I thought it was a great weekend for Seth Dardar, who was recognized as co-conference player of the week. He was 6 for 10 over the weekend, 4 doubles and a home run for Dardar. He also walked 4 times, so he reached base 10 times on the weekend. This is a guy who was the best hitter on a tournament team last year from the Big 12. It's not like you brought Seth Dardar up from Columbia, where he was previously. You didn't bring him up from High Point. You didn't. He played in the Big 12 last year. And the Big 12 is not the SEC. It's not the ACC. But the Big 12 can play baseball. And Seth Dardar was over a 300 hitter last year at Kansas State. He entered the weekend hitting 220. I don't think he's a 220 hitter. I think he's better than that. And he showed that over the weekend. 6 for 10, 4 doubles and a homer with 4 walks. He drove in 5 runs. LSU did nothing against Jackson Jelkin of note. Jelkin's pretty good. I told you on Friday it's going to be a high-velocity sinker. He's going to throw it a lot. And he was in the strike zone, and LSU struggled against him for 8 innings. Over the final 17 offensive innings, LSU had 27 hits and scored 26 runs. 22 of those were earned. So, I mean, that's a really good offensive outburst. Mason Braun had 2 really nice swings on Saturday. You hadn't seen that out of him in a little bit. He drove the ball out of the ballpark, which was a great swing. He ripped a double down the right field line, which was great. John Pearson comes up with the swing that LSU absolutely had to have on Sunday. You got down 7-0, and Pearson comes up with the bases loaded. They go to the bullpen for a right-hander, and he buggy whips one out of the yard and really shot the box into life. And that's a swing you had to have. Stanfield was sensational in the game on Sunday. Is driving singles all over the place, up the middle, off the pitcher, into right field again. He was great. It's got to be more guys than just Jake Brown and Derek Curriel. You got to have more than that, and you did over the weekend. You got contributions all up and down the lineup, which I thought was very, very good. Also on the positive was Zach Cowan's effort in the game following William Schmidt on Saturday. Schmidt was able to get you into the 6th inning with shutout baseball. The offense spotted you a little bit of a lead, and Cowan came in and was fantastic. If you look at Cowan's last 8 1/3 SEC innings, so what started at Vanderbilt when LSU was down 1,000,000 on Friday, and they put Cowan in, and he actually allowed LSU to come all the way back and take the lead in that game. And then you say last week against Oklahoma and this week against Kentucky, Cowan in 3 SEC outings, not total. We're not talking about midweek stuff. 3 SEC outings, 8 1/3 shutout, only 2 hits, and he struck out 7 on Saturday. And that's a big number. Like to strike out 7 in 3 1/3 is obviously a big number. You got 10 outs and 7 of them were strikeouts. It's even bigger when you consider the fact that like Kason Evans struck out 3 on Friday, and William Schmidt, who didn't allow a run, it's not like he didn't have good stuff. William Schmidt only struck out 3 in his 5 1/3. Cowan was just blowing him away. I mean, it was really the changeup that was the difference maker, and they just could not lay off of it. So I thought that was really, really encouraging as well. So when you look at LSU's bullpen, Gavin Guidry has struggled. There's no doubt. Guidry gave up the home run against Vanderbilt, surrendered the lead last week, and then obviously didn't have it to start the game on Sunday. You look at LSU's bullpen, and I think Sheeran is still a very trusted arm. Cowan has got to be in that mix now, and you probably have Rizzi on the back end of that. Rizzi didn't have good control on Sunday, has gotten hit a little bit, has not had the dominant year we thought could be coming from him. But your 2 best relievers now, and the guys that I think you're going to go to slam the door, are going to be Devin Sheeran and Zach Cowan, and I think they're going to do it for multiple innings. This is now they're going to be what last year Case and Evans and Zach Cowan was. That's what those guys are going to be. They're going to be what Griffin Herring was 2 years ago. We've got a lead. There's one out in the seventh. I need to get 8 outs. Okay, then let's go with Cowan. Let's go with Sheeran. That's probably going to be it. And I think that was a good thing. Stephen Milam continues to play sensational defense. I thought that was absolutely noteworthy this weekend. He's able to go in the hole and throw the ball across the diamond. He's able to make plays charging forward. He made that play with the infield in to get the out at home plate, which it was an easy play, relatively speaking, but in that scenario, we've seen time and time again LSU struggle getting the ball home. We've seen bad throws from first base from Zach York. Trent Caraway was late throwing the ball in the game on Friday. I was late throwing the ball in on Friday. Milam made the play and got the out at home. That was a great thing to see. I wanted to point that out. And I like the fact that LSU hit the ball out of the ballpark. That's something that you're just going to have to do to win these games, to win these weekends. And Kentucky didn't hit a home run the whole weekend. That's just a hard way to make a living. And I thought that LSU did some really good things over the weekend. The last piece to this, I started with the offense, talked about Cowan, talked about Milam at defense. The last piece to this is there's no way for me to prove this, but it felt like yesterday was a bit of an inflection point for LSU because you're down 7-0. Not much is going your way. Your pitchers can't throw strikes, and you've lost two SEC weekends. You've lost 3 in a row. It looks like you're going to lose your 4th weekend in a row. And they just got galvanized, and they fought back, and they put up great at-bats. And Jay Johnson's jawing at the Kentucky dugout, and they're jawing back. And it just felt like one of those games that potentially you could point back to and suggest, hey, that's when they may have turned a corner. It's probably ambitious, and maybe there's nothing to that at all. But it felt like they got their back against the wall on Sunday, and they came back swinging. They got up, and they started swinging, and they connected. They threw some haymakers, and they ended up running away from Kentucky. And it may have been one of those galvanizing days where you, 1, get confidence because you played well, and 2, grow a little bit closer because you were very much in a back-and-forth combat with Kentucky. And I told you on Friday that playing Kentucky will drive you nuts. They are an American Legion summer ball group of goofballs. They're gonna yell boom every time they get to second base. They're gonna stand on top of the plate. They're gonna stare the pitcher down after walks. They're gonna, when they take a pitch with 2 strikes, they're gonna tap their chest and point to the dugout. They take the form of their head coach and manager who's over at third base, and Nick Mingione. Y'all know how I feel about him. I haven't forgiven him for something that happened 16 years ago. That's probably a me thing and not a him thing, but this is the identity of Kentucky. They're going to try to make you mad. They're going to try to talk to you. They're going to try to bunt and annoy you and steal bases. They don't slug. They don't hit for power. They're essentially pretty anemic offensively in what you're trying to do traditionally in baseball. But they do all the other stuff to get under your skin, and it can produce. They won the game on Friday, and they were right there with the 7-0 lead on Sunday. And they've won a lot of games under Nick Mingione. But it will irritate you if you let it. And I thought the bat flip that Dardar threw up, which some people will say that's the coolest thing ever. That's awesome. Go Tigers. Some people will say that's disrespectful to the game and it's egregious and you can never do that. I'm neither one of those places. I'm closer to the middle with the lean towards, hey, you just hit one 435 feet to give yourself the lead in a 3-run jack. I'm all right. Toss the bat. So that showed a little bit of the frustration, the excitement in coming out of it. And maybe, just maybe, for a team that has played so poorly in so many aspects of the game, to have a moment where you come alive and come back against a team that is doing all those things, maybe, just maybe, that's a moment that you bring the group together a little bit. It remains to be seen. You got to go out there and play against Southern tomorrow, and then you got to hit the road and go to Lindsey Nelson and play a team that's licking its wounds after getting walked off 3 times over the weekend. But maybe they developed a little confidence and came together as a team on Sunday with their back against the wall. That's what I can hope, at least. Now, it wasn't all positive over the weekend. There were absolutely some negatives. So we'll take a time out. We'll come back, and I'll get into some of the things that I did not like to see over the weekend. That's next on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. And safety is a big deal in the bathroom, especially as folks age. So if there's somebody in your life that's getting up in age, wants to stay at home, but you feel like could be in a hazardous situation in the bathroom, do what you can to mitigate that risk. Put in the non-slip floors. Put in the handrails in potentially slippery areas. Put in the walk-in and sit-down tub that can be more comfortable and safer. Put in the bench in the shower. These can be difference makers, especially as folks age. So if you've never thought about that and maybe want to have the discussion with David Duvall to see what all that entails, he's happy to sit down with you and have that consultation. That part's free. You decide to go through with things and you want to finance them, you can. 0% up to 18 months. That is same as cash. It's One Bath and Closets. Check out the website, onebathandclosets.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions. Guarantee Health Solutions, guiding healthcare forward. GuaranteeHealth.com.
Monday shows brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions. GuaranteeHealth.com is the website, GuaranteeHealth.com. Rachel Fricky and her crew over there, they're awesome. They just do fantastic work in the healthcare space. Their motto is moving healthcare forward. If you are an urgent care, private medical practice, dental office, hospital, you bring on Guarantee Health Solutions to help optimize your operation. They're operational experts over at Guarantee Health Solution. What they do is they'll come in, they'll give a full assessment of your patient's journey. That starts with discovering your healthcare operation and getting in for healthcare. Like how many clicks to healthcare is something that they take very, very seriously at Guarantee Health Solutions. And then once they come in, what's that experience like? Guarantee Health Solutions will do a full assessment of that patient journey once you get in, how they're treated at the front desk, how easy is it once you get your care, and then do you remain in the system? How about getting back in for that follow-up appointment or getting in for that annual appointment? They help with marketing as well. They can help you with SEO. They can help you with a location for your business. They're just here to optimize your healthcare operation. So check them out online at GuaranteeHealth.com, GuaranteeHealth.com. All right, I gave you some positives there for LSU over the weekend. It's positive they won the weekend. It's positive they came back fighting on Sunday. It's positive they scored 28 runs in 3 games. It's positive that Zach Callen was great and William Schmidt didn't allow a run. All that's positive. There were some real negatives and some concerning ones. Kason Evans had an opportunity to build off his best outing as a Tiger against Oklahoma, and he went out on Friday and was just bad for the beginning of his outing. He walked the first hitter on 4 pitches. Like, the biggest thing you're trying to do against Kentucky is keep the leadoff man on off base. He walks the leadoff man on 4 pitches. He hits the 2-hole hitter on the second pitch. And it was like that for the first 3 innings of the game. He just had no fastball command whatsoever. He threw 53 strikes in the game and 47 balls. He was almost at 50% strike to ball. And as far as getting ahead of hitters, which is what you've got to do, especially in the SEC on a Friday, well, he got ahead of 7 of the first 19. So 12 of the first 19 hitters he faced were looking at a 1-0 count. It's hard to get chase when you're constantly in 1-0. It's hard to get weak contact when you're constantly in 1-0. And it just wasn't good early in the game. He was constantly in trouble, constantly with guys on base. Now, he kept it together because Kentucky offensively doesn't have much punch. They just don't hit doubles and they don't hit homers, which is why I don't think they're ever going to win anything playing like that under Nick Migione. So he kept it together, and you look at his line, and he allowed 4 earned runs in 6 innings. Like, that's not a disastrous outing for a starting pitcher really at any level. 4 earned runs in 6 innings. But ultimately, this is a Friday night guy, and you're facing other Friday night guys. And Kentucky's Friday night guy was mowing through LSU, and he got through 8 innings and allowed 2 runs. And that's the guy you're facing. If Kason Evans gives you 6 innings of 4-run baseball on a Sunday, you feel okay about that. But this is not Sunday. This is Friday night. And it just wasn't very good. And that now means that if you look at Kason Evans' starts, and you've seen 7 of them, like 1 was brilliant, and the other 6 have been like, eh. And you can't have on Friday night. You can't have that in game 1 or 2 of a regional. You can't have that in game 1 of a super. And I understand the people that are rolling their eyes. This team's not going to get to a super regional. But, like, that's what we talk about here in Baton Rouge. We talk about a championship standard. And that's why when I talk about Case and Evans, I have to lump him in with Cade Anderson. I have to lump him in with Paul Skeens. I have to lump him in with Alex Lang. I have to lump him in with Aaron Nola. That's the group we're lumping you in with. That's the expectation level. That's what it needs to look like at LSU. And it did against Oklahoma. It looked just like that. That's in there. It didn't on Friday. And that's a concern moving forward facing Friday night guys in the Southeastern Conference. Like Tennessee's struggling to find one. So this week, they just demoted Tegan Coons. But you're going to see Hunter Elliott in Oxford. You're going to see a stud, no matter who it is. Mississippi State's Friday night guy did not pitch over the weekend, but he may be back. If it's not, they've still got great arms. You're going to see Liam Peterson at Florida. You're going to see Volchko in Athens. Like, you're going to see dudes on Fridays. And you saw one on Friday, and LSU didn't keep up. And that's a problem. There were other issues that I just did not like at all, just in terms of the quality of LSU's play over the weekend. Like, Omar Cerna missed a sign on a hit and run and got a guy thrown out at second base. Like, that has nothing to do with your opponent. That's just a player who is not paying attention and doesn't get the sign. You saw Braun run through a stop sign at second base on Sunday and just get thrown out at third. You saw Derek Curiel on Saturday taking off for third base with nobody out and getting thrown out trying to steal. There's a left-handed hitter in the box, which means the catcher has a clear line of sight to third base, and he just threw him out for the first out of the inning. You never make the first or third out at third base. You just can't make that play. On Friday, LSU's got the infield in. Trent Caraway is basically playing shortstop in this shift. They hit him a soft ground ball. He fields it and slowly throws the ball home to a catcher who's 6 feet in front of home plate because he doesn't think that the play can be made at home. And I rewatched it 3 times this morning. Caraway's either got to charge that ball and fire it home with urgency, or he's got to field it the way he did and throw it to first base. But you can't throw it home 2 steps late and not get it out. You just can't do that. Seth Dardar had a chance to turn a double play on Sunday. Got a perfect feed from John Pearson right into his chest and spiked the relay throw to first base. And York doesn't pick it. Like, these mistakes that you're making are not forced by the opponent. If they're hitting missiles at your third baseman who makes a couple of errors, like, well, they're putting pressure on you. They're not forcing you to miss a sign. They're not forcing you to run through a stop sign at second base. They're not forcing you to spike a throw from second. They're not forcing you to try to steal third base. These are just bad baseball plays that LSU continues to make. You hit 5 more batters. I know Kentucky gets hit by pitches a lot. They lead the SEC in it. I know you got to try to pitch inside. Sometimes the ball get away. But, like, this Kentucky team can't hit. They don't hit. They don't hit. And you're beating them with pitches and putting guys on base with fastballs that are nowhere near the plate. You walk 20 guys over the weekend. Like, sometimes some walks are better than others. Guy lays off a 3-2 changeup that just dips out of the zone. Like, that's a pretty quality pitch, pretty quality take. Put on LSU's walks. Look at them. You're talking about fastballs that are missing by 2 feet. It's just not good baseball. And it's now gone on for so long that it just feels like that's what this team is. And I apologize for being negative for this 10-minute segment the day after LSU stormed back from 7 down to win an SEC series, their first of the year. I understand that's probably not exactly what everyone wants to hear, but, like, I can't hide from it. I gave you the positives in the last segment, and there were some. You swung the bat. Schmidt looks very good. Cowan looks great. You showed some fight. You showed some togetherness. You showed some toughness. You won the weekend. But the thing about covering LSU baseball is that the discussion is different. This is like covering Duke basketball. This is like covering Kentucky basketball. This is like covering Alabama football or Georgia football. This is like covering Ohio State football. Everything you do in every discussion that we have is framed through a championship lens. It's the blessing of having this program, and it's the curse of having this program, that it's tough for me to sit here on a Monday covering this team and suggest that this was a monster win weekend when you did so many things that were so poor. I tweeted it out. Like, it's just so frustrating to watch them not do some of the easy things. And they just don't. They just don't. And the fact that you won the weekend doesn't completely mask that. It masks some, but it doesn't. And for LSU to turn this thing around and to make something out of this season, you just have to play cleaner than that. And they're just not. It's ambitious to think you're going to dig yourself out of a 7-0 hole most days. To think that you're going to hang 17 runs most days. Most days, you got to turn that double play. You've got to pick up your third base coach. If you're going to play the infield in, you either have to play it with some urgency or make the safe play and throw it to first. These are non-negotiables in the game of baseball, and this is not a coaching problem. Jay Johnson has coached extremely fundamentally sound teams that do the right thing. And it's not that it's a bunch of like new guys doing it. Like Curiel knows better than that. And Jay said in the postgame, he's like, you got to be careful with the discipline there because you want Derek Curiel to play aggressively. The best way to come out of a slump is to swing the bat. The best way to make something happen positive is to go make something happen. But that's just not the spot. It's not the spot to try to steal third with the left-handed hitter up and nobody out. So it's not all bad. There is some good. There is some talent. And that's probably what makes it the most frustrating thing is that there are going to be times in every sport that we cover, LSU baseball, LSU football, the Saints, LSU basketball, like there are going to be seasons where you look up and you go, well, this team just has no chance. LSU men's basketball late January this year. The Saints in October. Like this team has no chance. I can't say that about this team, that they have no chance. Because I've seen what Kason Evans can be. I've seen what William Schmidt can be. It's possible that Cooper Moore comes back and really helps. I think that Seth Dardar can be better than he's been for 2 months. I think Stephen Milam can be better than he's been for 2 months. I think Jake Brown is a star. I think Derek Curiel is a star. I think Omar Cerna has massive potential. Like, there are some real pieces here, and I'm looking around at a league where 7 teams got swept this weekend. 7. There were 8 SEC series. LSU and Kentucky split. LSU won the series, and everybody else got swept. Arkansas got swept. You're tied with them in the league. Auburn got swept by Alabama. Oklahoma. Like, teams are getting swept. There's some vulnerable teams out there. The standings are jumbled. You're not in a terrible spot relative to the rest of the conference. Your RPI is not any good. I don't really care about that right now, but your RPI is not any good. Your non-conference had some significant issues. You haven't played very well, but you're not in the worst spot I've ever seen. And this is the way that I've characterized it, and this is probably a flawed way to look at it. I will admit that this is probably a flawed way to look at it. But if you can go 14-13 over 27 SEC games outside of South Carolina, 14-13, that's 500 ball. Now you're 2 games under it, so you're going to have to flip that. But 14-13 for the other 9 weekends, and you can beat South Carolina 3 times. You host a regional. 500 ball, sweep South Carolina. 500 ball, sweep South Carolina. Now, Texas A&M tried to lean on that last year, and they clawed their way all the way back up to it. Then you got the Missouri series right on a platter. Got to win all 3 of these, and you got swept. So, it's flawed. I get it. But if I'm trying to put a positive spin on this, 500 ball, sweep South Carolina. It's at home. It's doable. But you got to play better. And some of the stuff that LSU is not doing right now is not forced by a good opponent. It's just playing bad. I think they can do better than that. We'll see. Come back and put a bow on LSU women's basketball season. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge. SwingEasyGCBR.com. Had lunch with Edmund from Swing Easy earlier today. Things are going awesome over there. If you haven't been, just go try it out. That's my advice to you. because when folks go, they go back. It's a lot of fun. You can play on the simulator. You want to play 18 holes, you can do it. It doesn't take 5 hours. You want to go work on your game, hit some balls at lunch, hit some balls after work, whether it's hot, raining, getting dark early. None of that matters at Swing Easy because you're inside. And what they'd love is for you to look into a membership, especially a corporate membership. You want to entertain clients there on weekdays or weekends. You want to have the ability to run over there during lunch, get some swings in. Become a member at Swing Easy Golf Club. Get you some perks, opportunity to get some hours free at the beginning of the month. Ask about it when you go in. They're on Segan at Perkins, the Swing Easy Golf Club, online at swingeasygcbr.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions. Guarantee Health Solutions, guiding healthcare forward. GuaranteeHealth.com.
Looking for a new truck in this new year? Try my friends at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. FabryChevrolet.com is the website. You can check out the entire inventory there at FabryChevrolet.com. Make that short drive up to St. Francisville and check it out with your eyes in person. They're on Highway 61 in St. Francisville, as I mentioned. Looking for a new Silverado up to $11,000 off MSRP or 1.9 APR financing. Looking for a new GMC Sierra up to $13,000 off the MSRP on that 0% APR financing. Maybe you're taking the family on a road trip for the summer. That's coming up and you need a new ride for that. Chevy Tahoes, Chevy Suburbans, GMC Yukons, Denali's. They got them all at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. Check out that inventory online at FabryChevrolet.com. FabryChevrolet.com. All right, LSU women's basketball season comes to an end back on Friday night. Tigers lose to Duke 87-85. Couple things. One, a great fight to get back in it. Looked like LSU was cooked with 2 minutes to go and really did a nice job getting a couple of stops, getting the ball to Michaela Williams, getting the ball to the rim, making clutch shots, and took the lead and could not hold that lead. Duke draws up a nice inbounds play, gets the ball in, a little pump fake. Then you get Flaugier moving on the pump fake and then come back and knock down a shot. And sometimes folks hit shots, and Duke's basketball programs know that very well. After this weekend, they hit one in the women's game against LSU and had one hit on them in the men's game by UConn. So a good fight and a good shot by Duke to finish it. Ultimately, the story in this game to me is that LSU cannot allow Duke to score 87 points. That is not a Kim Mulkey defense. And we talked to Reed Darcy from The Advocate back on Friday, and he felt like they were really playing well on the defensive side. Clearly, you had a step down in competition in weekend number one of the NCAA tournament. That's the case every year. But they looked like they were playing well defensively, and they just did not play well defensively in this game. There wasn't anything on the stat sheet that really popped for Duke. They shot 42%, 27% from three. They shot 78% from the line, made 18 free throws. But I think the big deal was 20 offensive rebounds, and you allow somebody to get to the offensive glass with that kind of frequency. Offensive rebounds lead to two things if you're on the defensive side. They lead to points for the other team and fouls, and that's just something that you can't have, and certainly LSU did in this game. Grace Knox had 5 fouls, and you had 2 starters for LSU, Kate Koval and Zakiya Johnson, that combined not to score. They played 27 total minutes. They took 2 field goals, and they did not score any points. Mylasia Fulwiley played one of her best statistical games of the season. She had 28 points coming off the bench in 32 minutes in the game. But it just wasn't enough because LSU defensively and on the glass wasn't good enough. And that's, I think, the story of this game. That's a disappointing exit for LSU because of the firepower that they had offensively. You feel like you got a chance to beat just about anybody if you shoot it well. And LSU did shoot it well in this game. I mean, if you'd have told Kim Mulkey you're going to shoot 46% from the floor and you're going to make 16 out of 17 free throws, I think she would have taken that one. And I think she would have taken the 85 points before they tipped it off in the game. But ultimately, you gave up 87, and the last 3 came right there at the buzzer. It rattled around and went down. So disappointing, and Flaugier's career will end. But you could get a lot of players back from this team. We'll see what Mylasia Fulwiley decides to do, but Michaela's got another year to play. You got a really talented freshman class that they got a lot of minutes this past year. And so we'll see what happens when they run it back. The portal's always going to be vital, and LSU's always a pretty big player in the transfer portal. If you can go get get a couple impact players from the transfer portal, it should be a really, really solid team again next year. But this one felt pretty good. I felt good about this team watching them play against South Carolina in the PMAC. I thought this team is good enough to beat South Carolina. I would pick South Carolina to beat them if they played, but they can beat South Carolina, and that's kind of where the litmus test is. We never got to see them against UConn, and certainly didn't get to see them against UCLA on Sunday. But this team felt like it had a chance, and to watch that shot go in, March obviously giveth away, it also taketh, and it took from LSU here on Friday as they lose 87-85 and fall short of the Elite Eight, where they could have had another showdown with Lauren Betts and the UCLA Bruins. So tough loss for LSU. First buzzer beater they've been beat on in a while. That's always an uncomfortable feeling. I remember LSU getting beat on that buzzer beater by NC State, in fact, coincidentally, with Will Wade's press conference being today with the Jordan Mickey and Jarrell Martin team. That's always a tough deal, and Kim Mulkey's team had to deal with it. So that one is over. We'll move forward to baseball and I guess softball now at this point here as far as LSU goes with spring football up and at 'em. We'll talk about spring football in hour number 2. We'll also talk about Alvin Kamara and whether or not the Saints have him in their plans moving forward. Kellen Moore spoke about that at the owners meeting. I want to talk about the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 in the men's tournament that we saw, including Duke UConn, which was an absolute classic. So we've got a lot to do in hour number 2. If you missed any of hour number 1, I spent the first 15 minutes talking about Will Wade's press conference. He was there at the Assembly Center today and talked to the media for about 30 minutes. I gave my thoughts on it right after he left the podium. We also did 30 minutes on LSU baseball. Positives are there. Negatives as well. If you missed any of our LSU talk, Hunt on LSU is our LSU YouTube channel. Hunt on Saints is where you can find our Saints stuff as well, wherever you find your podcast, and of course on YouTube. We're going to pause for national headlines and Sports Center, and we got a busy hour number 2 coming your way. Hope your work week is off to an awesome start. Our Monday shows are brought to you by Guarantee Health Solutions. Find them online at guaranteehealth.com.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Check out the folks over at Marucci. Marucci. Go take a tour. You'll see and learn the story about how 2 former big leaguers and an athletic trainer decided to start making some bats. And they made them in the backyard shed, and they did a pretty good job. And they started allowing folks to use them, and they liked them. And now all of a sudden you look forward 22 years later, you're talking about the official bat of Major League Baseball. So go by and take a tour and learn about that story. Learn about the roots of Marucci, which is now a global brand. You can also see where they make those 1,200 bats every single day to send to the best players in the world. If you've got a youth baseball team, you've got a youth softball team, you want to do something to kind of build some teamwork, some camaraderie, get them out of the house, maybe off the practice field, go take a tour at Marucci. Every single ticket for the Marucci tour comes with a 20% discount in the campus tour store and in the hitter's house. What a gem we've got here in Baton Rouge with Marucci. Book a tour of Marucci at maruccisports.com. That's maruccisports.com.